Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Waalaikumsalam.
Before I begin, Shalom Ta'ala, I just want to thank everybody for coming out, taking time out of your Saturday afternoon. And the topic of our lecture here will be Muslims in the media and how Shaytaun has managed to manipulate the media to destroy the image of Muslims in Islam. And why it is important for Muslims to get involved in the media. Mankind, from the beginning of creation, has had an eternal enemy from the very beginning, who was determined to prove to Allah that Adam and his progeny was not deserving or not deserving of the honor that he bestowed on them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says in the Quran, I'm going to recite the verse in Arabic and then double back and translate it in English. Because and the beauty of that is that as African American Muslims, there was a time when only thing we could do was quote the verse in English. But Allah has bestowed His mercy on many of us in the Ummah to understand Arabic and to quote it in Arabic is a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I go places sometimes and I'll begin reciting the verse in Arabic and then I'll have some, smart aleck say, well, nobody here speaks Arabic. Why is he reciting it in Arabic? Because it's a reminder of how far we have come as a people. It's a reminder of where we've come from. Many of you have been Muslim for a long time, longer than I've been born. And you know better than I do. In the 60s and the 70s, we didn't have a large amount of African American Muslims who could speak, write, and recite Arabic. And today we have plenty. And that is a testament to how far we have come as people. So don't ever say, why is he reciting Arabic? We don't understand Arabic. The Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, he said, Al-Mu'min mir'atun al-Mu'min, that the believer is a mirror to another believer. I'm a mirror to you and how far we've come because my success is your success. I learn Arabic, you learn Arabic. Allah says in the Quran, and I'm going to recite the verse in Arabic and then translate it. وَلَقَدْ كَرَمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ وَحَمَلْنَاهُمْ فِي الْبَرِّ وَالْبَحْرِ ورزقناهم من الطيبات وفضلناهم على كثير ممن خلقنا تفضيلا. Allah says that indeed we have conferred upon the children of Adam honor. We have honored the children of Adam. And we have carried them on land and on sea. And we have provided for them of the goodness of this life. And we have favored them over much of our creation. This is the honor that Allah has bestowed upon us as human beings. And this eternal enemy that we've had from the very beginning has been hell-bent on proving to Allah that we are not deserving of this honor and this status that Allah has given us. Because there are some, even from amongst us, who adopt the attitude that your success is my failure. Right? They believe that because you are successful, that automatically means that I'm a failure. And that was exactly this enemy's approach when Allah created Adam. When Allah created Adam and fashioned Adam with his own hands, this enemy, he looked at Adam and said, your success is my failure. And as a result of that, he wanted to prove to Allah that we are not deserving of the honor and the prestige that Allah has given us as a human race. Allah goes further to explain this enemy and his dialogue with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The enemy that I'm referring to is none other than Shaytaun. That is our enemy. I'm not your enemy. You are not each other's enemy. Shaytaun is our enemy. Allah says in the Quran, قال أرأيتك هذا الذي كرمت علي لئن أخرتني إلى يوم القيامة لأحتركن ذريته إلا قليلا. He's having a conversation with Allah. He says, do you see this creature that you have favored and honored over me? Here we're getting that mentality. And keep in mind, all right, because sometimes in order to go forward, we have to go backwards. We have to go back to the origin to understand where the source of our frustration comes from. When you want to solve a problem, you don't hack at the leaves or the branches, you go straight to the root. So in order for us to understand where all this stuff that we are suffering from and the ills that we deal with as a people, we have to go back to the origin of our frustration. Look at the mentality of Shaytaun. He said to Allah, do you see this creature that you have favored over me? You have honored over me. If you give me respite until the day of judgment, I will lead every single one of them astray, with the exception of a few. Right? This is a promise that he is making to Allah. Simply because his attitude was, when Adam was created, his success was automatically my failure. And stay with me, because what I'm giving you now is a metaphor. And I need you guys to make the connection. We're talking about Muslims in the media and how the media has manipulated what we see to change and shape public opinion. So all of what I'm mentioning of this blueprint of Shaytaun and Adam, trying to make the connection between that and what the topic of the lecture is. So he said to Allah, made a promise, this creature that you have favored over me, if you give me respite until the day of judgment, I will lead him and all of his progeny astray, with the exception of a few. Therefore, it becomes imperative for us to know our enemy. How will we ever be successful if we don't know our enemy? As a matter of fact, how will we be successful when we have misplaced our anger towards one another while the enemy continues to do what he does? As they say that the greatest trick that the devil ever played is to make you believe he doesn't exist. And here we are today. As African Americans, you look at me and you think I'm your enemy. And the fact of the matter is that you don't hate me, you hate yourself. I'm just a reflection of who you are, and when you look at me, you're looking into the mirror. And so your hatred of yourself is projected on me under the guise that you don't like me. But it's not me you don't like, it's you. It's you who don't like. That's that self-hatred, right? The same thing that our brother Malcolm spoke about years ago. Who taught you to hate yourself, right? Who taught you to hate yourself? And we're still grappling with that even until today, right now. Yes. So it is imperative for us to know our enemy. To know our enemy. And understanding his plight and the origin of his frustration that gave birth to the plight, as well as the strategies that he employs to achieve his goal. Art of War, the book, The Art of War, he said, if you know the enemy and know yourself, then you need not fear the result of 100 battles. If you know your enemy and you know yourself, then you need not fear 100 battles. The result of 100 battles. He said, because if you know yourself, but you don't know your enemy, every victory that you gain, you will also suffer a loss, or you will also suffer defeat as well. And if you know neither your enemy nor yourself, you will succumb in every battle. You will lose every single battle because you don't know yourself and you don't know your enemy. But if you know yourself and you know your enemy, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. But if you don't know your enemy, right? If you don't know yourself or your enemy, then you will succumb to every single struggle, every battle. So, from the very beginning, Shaytaun, he played on the innocence of Adam, which is what the media does. Plays on the innocence of people, right? Especially our children, because we sit our children in front of a TV screen and we don't sit with them to help them dissect what they see on the TV. So our young children begin to look at hip-hop videos believing that that is real, the bling bling, not understanding that the bling bling was rented, the money that the dollars that making it rain with is not even real dollars. It's a truckload of fake $1 bills that they bring in for the video shoot. The bling bling that they're wearing in the video was rented from a jeweler. The cars and all of the stuff that they see, it doesn't belong to these rappers. It doesn't belong to them. But who's there to dissect that and to show our children what is real from what is fake? We sit them in front of a TV and we let the TV play on the innocence of our children. The same way that Shaytaun played on the innocence of Adam. When Allah created Adam and allowed him to roam freely throughout paradise, Adam believed that everything that he saw was real and every creature he came in contact with was genuine. Hence the fact when Shaytaun came to him, Adam believed him and he succumbed. Here again, not knowing your enemy. Not knowing your enemy. And Shaytaun played on the innocence of Adam because with innocence comes vulnerability. When you're innocent, you are vulnerable. The same way women are taken advantage of. You go into a relationship believing that I just want to be loved, I just want to be in a relationship, and the man is, the two horns come up out of his head. Take advantage of your vulnerability. Innocence equals ignorance, which equals vulnerability. Understand how that formula works. Innocence equals innocence. Innocence equals ignorance, which equals vulnerability. And Shaytaun played with it. And Adam believing that everyone he came in contact with was genuine, sincere. As Allah mentions in another verse of the Quran, that when Shaytaun had the dialogue with Adam, he said to Adam, وَقَاسَمَهُمَا إِنِّي لَكُمَا لَمِنَ النَّاصِحِينَ. And he swore to Adam that I am just a sincere advisor. Understand something, evil never comes in the form of evil. If you're waiting for evil to pop up with a sign that says I'm evil, you're sadly mistaken. Evil never comes in the form of evil. If you're sitting there waiting for the wolf in the sheep's clothing to come out to shed his fur and show you his real face, you are sadly mistaken. Sometimes your vulnerability is exploited, and you don't realize what has happened to you until it's all over. But if you're sitting there waiting for evil to come and say, hey, I'm evil, I'm here, be aware of me, you are sadly mistaken. And this is why Adam went through what he went through in paradise with Shaytaun, and Allah documented that, preserved that story for us, generation after generation after generation, some variations in different books, but the story, the core of the story is still the same. Why is that story preserved? Because that is the blueprint. That is the blueprint that we were to follow after Adam. Took advantage of Adam. How do you take advantage of Adam? Look at how our innocence is exploited. Allah gave Adam a command. He told him what? Don't eat. Enjoy everything in paradise with the exception of this tree. Enjoy everything in paradise with the exception of this tree. Shaytaun came to Adam as a sincere advisor, a well-wisher, right? Wish you well, I just want good for you. And you got to be real with your people when they say that to you. I just want good for you. All right? Not everybody who says that to you actually means it. Okay? But Shaytaun came to Adam and he said, وَقَالَ مَا نَهَاكُمَا رَبُّكُمَا عَنْ هَٰذِهِ الشَّجَرَةِ. He said, and your Lord only prevented you from eating from this tree. إِلَّا أَن يَكُونَا مَلَكَيْنِ أَوْ تَكُونَ مِنَ الْخَالِدِينَ. That your Lord only prevented you from eating from this tree because you would turn into angels and you would have everlasting life like him. Right? Look at how Shaytaun plays him. Right? In another verse, Allah says, قَالَ يَا آدَمُ هَلْ أَدُلَّكَ عَلَى شَجَرَةِ الْخُلْدِ هَلْ أَدُلَّكَ عَلَى شَجَرَةٍ وَمُلْكٍ لَا يَبْلَى. Shaytan came to Adam and said, Oh Adam, can I not direct you to a tree that if you eat from it, it will give you everlasting life? And it will give you a mulk, a dominion that will never diminish. If you look at the things that Shaytan is promising, what is he promising? What do you notice about the promise here? The promise was that you will be like God. Isn't this what reality TV offers you today? Yes. You can detach from being a normal human being and you can become godlike. You have rappers who are referring to themselves as Jehovah, God, today. Jesus. He's now Jesus, right? His own version of Jesus. They are believing that they are God because they are bought into the promise of Shaytan. And this is what the media offers you, reality TV. And the thing about it is that when you change the name, if you look at this story, the tree that Allah forbade them from eating from, right? Shaytan said, I will point you to a tree of everlasting life. He changed the name of the tree. But did that change the reality of the tree? No, it didn't. So changing the name of something does not change the reality of it. It is still the same tree that he was forbidden from eating from. So changing the name of something, and this is what the media does. They call it reality TV, but there's nothing real about it. Nothing. Everything is scripted. They change the name of it because in their world, it means that it changes the reality. And our children sit and they absorb and they digest all of it. All of it. Changing the name of something does not change the reality of it. It is still the same tree that Allah told them not to eat from. So when someone repackage something to you and give it to you, be wary of it because it is still, history repeats itself. There's nothing new under the sun. Right? Nothing. Everything that is being done now is things that were done before. And some of the scholars of Islam, they say, as-sa'id min wurida bi ghayrihi. The successful person is the one who learns from other people's mistakes. Was-shaqiyyu man wurida bi nafsi. And the wretched one, or the term we use today, ratchet, the ratchet one is the one who learns from his own mistakes. The wretched one is the one who learns from his own mistakes. You bump your head, you got to learn from that mistake. You don't have to do that. There are people that have come before you, generations of people who have made tons of mistakes that you can benefit from. As you're repeating, the same thing over and over, expecting different results is insanity. Doing the same thing over and over, believing that you are going to get a different result is insanity. But you can learn from other people's mistakes. And although we will create our own mistakes, we should not be repeating the same mistakes that were done, because that is not a sign of progress. It's not progress if 30, 40 years later, we're still making the same mistakes that we made 40 years ago. That's not progress. If we're making new mistakes, right, that's progress. Because as human beings, we can never escape the reality of making mistakes. But we should not repeat the mistakes that were made from the people that came before us. And so this is what the media, this is what television offers you today. A chance to detach from reality. And this is the society of narcissism that we live in today. Everybody is so over the top, self-aggrandizing. Everybody is a superstar. Everybody. Especially today with, the media outlets, people taking selfies of themselves and putting it on the internet. But who are you that you took a selfie and we should promote this across the board? It should get 1 million hits. For what? Who are you? What have you contributed to society? But this is the mentality today. Everybody is popular. Everybody is someone. And having contributed anything to your people, your cultivate, your civilization, your area where you live, your environment, what have you contributed so much so that you regard yourself as someone? What have you done? There are people who have done things that you will never do in your lifetime and never considered themselves to be as great as you consider yourself, and you've done nothing. You've done nothing. But this is what it offers you today, a chance to detach yourself from the reality and to give in to what is called the impulses. And that's, of course, if you're a Freudian, if you believe in Sigmund Freud's, analytical, breakdown of the human personality. That the impulses are these self-aggrandizing thoughts that you have about yourself that you want to fulfill and satisfy by all means. And then it's the ego, there's a super ego, and then the ego that kind of helps you balance those things out. But television allows you today to tap into that, to escape reality and live in your own world and be who you want to be, despite the fact that it conflicts with reality of who you are. So, innocence equals ignorance, which equals vulnerability. Sincere advisors, right? The television, it offers you sincere advice. There was a time when we used to say, I know it's the truth because I saw it on the news, right? I know it's the truth. Now today we say, I know it's the truth because I read it on Facebook. It must be true. I read it on the internet. It must be true. Sincere advisors. And then changing the names of things doesn't change the reality of it. And the last thing here is that this appeals to our impulses and our desires and our urges. Creating a desire to detach from reality. And this is achieved, all of this is achieved through imagery. Which brings me to the point of my lecture here. Imagery. The visions that you see on the television. And the ability of these images to shape your opinion about things. And from the very beginning, Shaytaun, he always had an obsession with the physical makeup of the human being. Right? Even his own image. His own image, as he considered himself the perfect specimen of extraordinary. And when Allah fashioned Adam with his own 2 hands, Allah commanded Shaytaun, along with the angels, to prostrate to Adam out of respect for the knowledge that Allah gave Adam. It wasn't about his physical makeup. It was about the knowledge that Allah gave to Adam. But Shaytaun was concentrating on his image, his physical makeup. And when Allah commanded him to prostrate, listen to what Allah said to him. قال يا إبليس ما منعك أن تسجد إذ أمرتك قال أنا خير منه خلقتني من نار وخلقته من طين. Allah said to Adam, Shaytaun, why didn't you prostrate to Adam when I told you to? When I instructed you to? He said, what? I'm better than him. You created me from fire. You created him from dirt. Right? Obsessed with the image. Obsessed with the image. I'm better than him. You created me from fire. Meaning the source or the origin of my creation is better than his. And that still goes on today, right? I'm better than him. You created me from fire. You created him from dirt. So there was an obsession with image. And the reason why is because Allah created Adam in his own image. Allah created Adam in his own image. There's an authentic hadith that's collected in Sahih al-Bukhari where the Prophet ﷺ said, خَلَقَ اللَّهُ آدَمَ عَلَى صُورَتِهِ طُولُهُ 60 ذِرَاعًا فكل من دخل الجنة على صورة آدم فلم يزل الخلق ينقص بعد حتى الآن. Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, he said that Allah created Adam in his own image. And I'll explain what that means. Some Muslims, they kind of shy away from this hadith because they think that that is likening Allah to his creation. No, don't shy away from the truth. Understand how to articulate the truth and don't shy away from it. Allah created Adam in his own image. That he was created 60 cubits tall. The original creation of Adam, he was 60 cubits tall. You know how tall that is? If we converted that to feet, that would be 90 feet tall. Adam was 90 feet tall. He said, and every individual that enters into paradise will enter into paradise based upon the original creation of Adam. Allah will expand our bodies. And we will enter into paradise based upon the first creation, which was the creation of Adam, 90 feet tall, 10 and a half feet wide. Right? And the Prophet continued, he said, وَلَمْ يَزِلِ الْخَلْقِ يَنْقُصُ بَعْدَ حَتَّى الْآنِ. And the stature of creation has continued to decrease up until our time today. So if the first man created was 90 feet tall, today we have grown adults that are 3 feet tall. And the stature of the human being continues to decrease because of the sins that mankind creates. Because of the sins that we create. Allah gave Shaytaun certain abilities. He gave him the ability to manipulate images, to manipulate physical images. So be careful, because not everybody that you see or run into or come in contact with is actually a human being. It could be a jinn. It could be Shaytaun himself. One of the first qualities of the believer mentioned in the Quran is our belief in the unseen. We believe that there are unseen forces that are here in this room right now, that are around us, that we can't see, but we believe in them. We're not just people of tangibility. We just believe in, as some groups, they say we only believe in the 5 senses, what I can hear, see, smell, touch, and understand and comprehend. There's restrictions to every faculty that Allah gave us. Restrictions. And that is for our own good. As Prophet Muhammad mentioned in the authentic hadith, that people in the grave are being tortured And everything in creation can hear them being tortured with the exception of the human being and the jinn. Because if we can hear them being tortured, we would not be able to contain ourselves. We would pass out, fall unconscious because of the cries and the screams of the people that are being tortured in their graves. So there's a limit to how much we can receive and conceive as human beings. Alright? So, but this is something that Allah gave him, the ability to manipulate images. Right? There was a authentic hadith that was mentioned in Sahih Bukhari, where Prophet Muhammad made one of his companions, Abu Hurairah, a wakil, someone to watch over the food that was collected for Zakat al-Fitr, for Ramadan. And there was a man who came and he tried to steal from the food. And Abu Hurairah caught him and said, "I'm going to take you to the Prophet." And he said, "No, I'm a poor man. I'm trying to feed my family. Let me go. I won't come back again." He came back the next night. Abu Hurairah took him and said, "I'm going to take you to the Prophet." He said, "No, I'm a poor man trying to feed my family. Let me go. I won't come back again." He came back the third time. And he said, "I'm going to take you to the Prophet." He said, "If you let me go, I'll teach you something that will benefit you." And he taught him Ayatul Kursi, the greatest ayat in the Quran. In Surah Al-Baqarah, Surah number 2, ayat 255. This ayat, he taught Abu Hurairah, the greatest ayat in the Quran. When Abu Hurairah ran to the Prophet later on that night, the Prophet asked him, "What happened with you and the guy that tried to steal?" He said that if I let him go, he would teach me something that would benefit me, and he taught me Ayatul Kursi. The Prophet said to Abu Hurairah, "Ama innahu qad sadaqaka wa huwa kadhub. تعلم يا أبا هريرة من تخاطب منذ 3 ليالي؟ قال لا. قال ذاك الشيطان." The Prophet asked Abu Hurairah, he said to Abu Hurairah, "The man, he told you the truth, but he's a liar. He told you the truth, but he's a liar. Do you know who you were talking to for the past 3 nights?" Abu Hurairah said, "No." He said, "You were talking to Shaytaun. Came in the form of a man." So Allah gave him that ability to manipulate images, making us believe that what we see is reality when in fact it's not reality. Okay? And this is exactly what the media does. It puts forth to you an image, makes you believe that it is one thing when in fact it's something different. And this is why the media was such a prime target for Shaytaun, because it was right along the lines of his plight and his ability to destroy mankind. Think about how many channels we flick through on a day-to-day basis, how many TV programs we watch on a day-to-day basis, and think about how many pages of the Quran we flip through on a day-to-day basis. If we flip through pages of the Quran like we flip through channels on the television, we will probably be more equipped to deal with our enemy than we are. Think about how many times we look at our cell phones, right? Count, do yourself a favor, count on a day-to-day basis, and some of you are a little more mature than the average group that I would normally be talking to, right? Think about a young person, how many times they look at their cell phone. And think about how many times they look at the Quran. Just look at the Quran. Because even looking at the words of Allah, it has its merit, it has its value. Even looking at the words of Allah. But Allah gave him the ability to manipulate not just his own image, but the images that we see. As Prophet Muhammad mentioned in the authentic hadith, إن المرأة تقبل في صورة الشيطان وتدبر في صورة الشيطان فإذا رأى أحدكم امرأة فأعجبته فليأتي أهله فإن ذلك يرد ما في نفسه. Prophet Muhammad, may peace and blessings be upon him, he said, and this hadith is found in Sahih Muslim. He said that the woman, now sisters, I want you to stay with me, because I know you'll be the first one to say, I don't agree with that, I don't understand that, okay? A lot of times, we run away from things that we are ignorant of. Stay and get educated. Don't run away. Don't say, I don't agree with that, and just, no. Get educated first. A lot of times we are in fear of things that we don't know. That's just who we are as a people. Prophet Muhammad made peace and blessings upon him. He said that the woman comes in the form of Shaytaun and she leaves in the form of Shaytaun. He says, so if any one of you men see in a woman something that arouses your desire, then go home to your wife because she has what she has. Okay? The scholars who explain this hadith, they said the woman comes in the form of Shaytan and she leaves in the form of Shaytan, meaning she has the same ability with her beauty to manipulate the emotions of the people she comes in contact with, the same way that Shaytan manipulates the emotions of the human being. That is what is meant by the hadith. Not that the woman is the devil or the woman is Shaytan. No. But her beauty, Shaytan manipulates her beauty in the eyes of the people who see her and creates certain desires and emotions in them the same way that he would. He uses the beauty of the woman to arouse these type of desires and play and manipulate the emotions of everyone that comes in contact with this woman. And it works, right? Shaytan not only has he the ability to manipulate images, but he also has the ability to manipulate speech. Allah says in the Quran, وَقُلْ لِعِبَادِي يَقُولُوا الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَنزَغُ بَيْنَهُمْ إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ كَانَ لِلْإِنسَانِ عَدُوًّا مُبِينًا. Allah says, and say to my servants, they should choose the best words to say to one another, because Shaytan comes in between their words to sow discord between them. Indeed, Shaytan is a clear and open and evident enemy to you. So he even has the ability to manipulate your words. How many divorces have taken place because a husband says something, the woman interprets it to mean something else, and that is not even what he meant? Because between him uttering the comment and the word reaching your ear, Shaytan is somewhere in that scenario. He's in the equation. During the persecution of the believers in Mecca, Prophet Muhammad sent the believers to Ethiopia so that they could have asylum. They would be protected from the persecution and the torture that they were receiving at the hands of Quraysh. So on one occasion, Prophet Muhammad was reciting Quran out loud. He was reciting a very beautiful surah in the Quran, surah number 53, Surah An-Najm, the surah of the star. And some of those verses, Allah started to talk about some of the idols of the non-Muslims, of the idolaters, mentioning their idols. But when Prophet Muhammad was reciting the verses, Shaytan changed the verses from being a form of dispraise of the idols to praise of the idols. So much so that after he finished the prayer, many of the non-Muslims, the idolaters, they begin to embrace him thinking, oh, you praised our idols, thank you, so now we're okay. And the believers that were in Ethiopia, they came back to Mecca because they thought there was a peace treaty and everything was okay. And so Prophet Muhammad had to go back and explain that it was not praising the idols, but rather that was Shaytan who changed his words. Changed his words. And this is also what the media does. Change the words, manipulate the images, manipulate the words. Which brings me to my point. And that is 95% of the world's perception of Islam is by way of the media. 95% of the world's perception of Islam is by way of the media. Understand, this is statistically. Media has the ability to shape public opinion. So if 95% of the world's perception of Islam is by way of media, then where do you think the Muslims should be? Where should our attention be focused on? Media. Simply because this is the way that we control our image. If you do not control any portion of the media, then you allow other people to paint you with their own brush. And you have no one to blame but yourselves. We can't sit back and say, well, the way they represent African American Muslims in the media is terrible. It's an atrocity. You have no one to blame but yourself because we have resources. We are resourceful as African American Muslims. But we don't utilize our resources in the proper places to make sure that we can change the image that is being projected to the world about African American Muslims. There was a Pakistani Muslim who traveled from New York to LA by car, stopping at every masjid that he came in contact with from New York to LA. When he got to LA and he had finished his journey, he said, I never knew as an American Muslim that there were that many African American Muslims in America. Meaning we don't even count. People don't even know we exist. People don't even know African American Muslims exist. I lived in Saudi Arabia for 8 years of my life. And I went into Saudis here in America, and the first thing they ask, are you Muslim? And I'm going to go by the beard. It's like, what other sign do you need to show that I'm a Muslim? Because they still have doubt whether or not we are even real Muslims or not. Because of the way that we are represented in the media. If there is even a representation of us in the media to begin with. But yet and still, we complain about the way we are represented. You can't change the game unless you are a player. Understand that. If you're standing on the outside, there's no way that you can change the game until you are on the inside. If we want to get involved, if we want to see change, we have to get involved. Allah even says in the Quran, إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُغَيِّرُ مَا بِقَوْمٍ حَتَّى يُغَيِّرُوا مَا بِأَنفُسِهِمْ. That Allah will not change the condition of the people until when? Until when? Until at first they change what is within themselves. We praying for a miracle, it's not going to happen. Islam is a religion that imposes on us to be proactive, to be aggressive. Look at how the Prophet and his companions, that community, in 10 years, in the Medina period, when they migrated to Medina, in a 10-year period, they built an empire in 10 years. We still living off the legacy of Malcolm X. What legacy have we created since then? We still feeding off of somebody else's legacy. He did his part. Where's our part? I was around when Malcolm did this and when Malcolm. What did you do? What did you do? What legacy are we leaving behind? We still feeding off of and building off of somebody else's legacy instead of creating one of our own. Malcolm's plight was to empower. He said things that is okay to say today. It's okay to say Elijah Muhammad is not the messenger of Allah and not fear for your life as a result of it because of him. He made it okay for us to say that today. And he was murdered for that. And the same people who murdered him, many of them don't even believe the same thing they murdered him for today. They don't even believe it. You took somebody's life for something that today you don't even believe. Some of them are Sunni Muslims today. Some of them are part of the working community today. Some of them don't even believe in the same things that they took somebody's life for. And today we're still living off of somebody else's legacy. I'm not trying to live off of this, I'm trying to create a legacy of my own. And this should be the plight of every Muslim, and the only way that we can be effective in doing that is we have to get involved. We have to get involved in media to change our image, to change the way that we are represented in the media. And until that happens, we have no one to blame except ourselves. The Prophet ﷺ in ending, he said, "Man wajada khayran falyahmadillah, wa man wajada ghayra dhalika fala yalumanna illa nafsahu." Whoever finds good, then let him praise Allah. And whoever finds other than good, then let him blame no one but himself. We have nobody to blame but ourselves. And I want to thank you all for listening attentively. And I pray that, I didn't offend anyone with what I said. And I pray that Allah allows us to benefit from the best of what we heard and allow us to take this message beyond where we are right now. As Prophet Muhammad said in his last sermon, he said, let those of you who are present inform those who are not present. We don't need everybody to be here to hear the message. We just need everybody that's here to convey the message. That's it. That's it. If you do your part by conveying, then alhamdulillah, you did your job. Wa shukran. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.